Hello, beautiful creatures of the world, and welcome back to Coffee with Kerri-Lynn. It's Friday, and you know what that means. My favorite episode, Freaky Friday. Ladies and gentlemen, beautiful creatures of the world, it's time to let your hair down. Think outside the box. Let your imagination wander. Take the burdens of the week off your shoulders, even if it's for a little while. Go into the weekend with a lighter heart and a more joyous mood. I promise you, all the shenanigans you didn't take care of this week will be waiting for you on Monday. That is why we call it Manic Monday. Ladies and gentlemen, beautiful creatures of the world, today I have a fantastic story for you. It is a story about life, love, loss, desperation, and an eccentric old woman. Today I'm going to introduce to you the story of Madame Sherri's Castle in West Chesterfield, New Hampshire. Madame Sherri was a famous Manhattan costume designer. She was born Antoinette Bremer in Paris, France in 1878. Now, Antoinette had a love for acting. She had a love for costume designing. She had a love for drama, the stage life. In 1909, she was going by the name Madame Sherri, and she met and married Anthony Macaluso. Now, Anthony Macaluso at the time was on the run from U.S. authorities. He was a little swindler, and he stole a lot of people's money. So he was going by the name Andre Relia, which he will go by that name, Andre Relia, for the rest of his life. In 1911, Andre and Madame Sherri moved from France to Manhattan, New York. Now, Madame Sherri's reputation as a French costume designer, her love for the drama scene in France, and her love for the cabaret does precede her into Manhattan, so people do know who she is. She opens up a costume design company in Manhattan. Now, Madame Sherri's costumes are so elaborate, so amazing, and so beautiful. It is rumored that she designed costumes for the Ziegfeld Folly Girls. Now, if you don't know anything about the dramatic arts, the entertainment arts of the time, the Ziegfeld Follies was the platform that launched many actors, actresses, dancers, costume designers, and set designers into stardom. So it's very important to be associated with the Ziegfeld Follies at that time. It meant you were going places, baby. Madame Sherri and Andre will hit the social scene running. They are promoting her business. They are out on the town. They are hobnobbing with the actors, the actresses, and some of the elite socialites of the time in Manhattan. In fact, Madame Sherri becomes a household name in Manhattan. Unfortunately, 6 years after arriving in the city, a tragedy would strike Andre and Madame Sherri. In 1917, Andre is out walking in a snowstorm on the streets of Manhattan when he is hit by a car. He receives permanent damage to his eyesight. Now you can imagine with the injury, Andre becomes a little more reclusive, gets a little depressive, but Madame Sherri still has to promote her business. She has to stay in the limelight. She has to keep designing. She is their sole source of income at this time. So in the 1920s, Madame Sherri becomes known as one of the most notorious party girls of the time, with some of the most elaborate costumes of the Roaring '20s. Madame Sherri also starts singing in some cabaret acts. She starts picking up little acting jobs. Unfortunately, Andre's health will deteriorate until his death in 1924. Madame Sherri is grief-stricken at the loss of her husband. Andre was everything to her. He was her world. He was her life. He was her passion. She finds that she can no longer stay in the city full time. Her apartments are a reminder of her beloved Andre and all that they had in the city and all that she no longer has with him gone. Madame Sherri begins traveling to Chesterfield, New Hampshire, to the home of her actor friend, Jack Henderson. In 1929, Madame Sherri will purchase 588 acres of land and a farmhouse by the Gulf Road in West Chesterfield, New Hampshire. Madame Sherri loves the little farmhouse. However, it's not to her New York style. Around 1931, Madame Sherri will begin construction on her castle. Now, it is rumored by the construction people that Madame Sherri was a very hard-to-please woman. She would set one set of plans, and then she would set another set of plans, and then she would look at the construction and want something else done, an addition, a subtraction. They could hardly keep up with the wants and whims of Madame Sherri. The house eventually ends up being 3 floors tall, and its grand feature is a stone staircase that goes on the outside of the building up to the 3rd floor in Madame Sherri's private apartments. Now, during Prohibition, when you cannot have alcohol, you cannot go to the restaurants and have alcohol, you cannot purchase alcohol at the stores, at the liquor stores, there's no bars with alcohol, there's speakeasies at the time. But all her socialite friends, all her actor friends, all her actress friends from Manhattan, they don't really want to sneak around in these speakeasies lest they get caught. They don't want the scandal in the paper. So Madame Sherri begins opening up her house for parties. Her house becomes notorious for lavish parties during the Prohibition. It is said that Madame Sherri dressed in her elaborate costumes, and it is even rumored that she sat in a cobra-backed throne, which she referred to as the Queen's Throne. In 1933, Prohibition will come to an end with the passing of the 21st Amendment. And with Prohibition being over, people are not too keen on leaving the city anymore and going to New Hampshire to the lavish parties at Madame Sherri's castle. They want to stay in the city. They want to socialize close to where they work, close to where they live. The restaurants are opening, the bars are opening, and the party scene is once again in the public sphere. Now, what people didn't realize at this time, after Andre's death, the purchase of the property, Prohibition parties were all being funded by Madame Sherri's friend and protege, Charles Le Marie. Around 1957, Charles will stop funding Madame Sherri's lavish lifestyle. Soon, she will go broke. She will lose her status in the Manhattan community, and her health will start to decline. Madame Sherri stops going to her castle in the woods. In 1959, the castle is vandalized. All of Madame Sherri's possessions and furniture are either looted or destroyed. The interior is completely ripped apart. The walls are torn down and smashed. Upon hearing this news, Madame Sherri's heart breaks, and she vows never to return to her castle. Instead, She wants to remember her castle as that opulent place where she shared so many good times with her friends from the city. Now in 1962, the castle will burn down, leaving only the stonework behind and the infamous Madame Sherri's staircase. Shortly after the fire of Madame Sherri's castle, she is placed into a nursing home in Brattleboro, Vermont. In 1965, Charles Lemery, who held the mortgage note on the property, decides to foreclose on Madame Sherri's castle remains and the land surrounding it and sell it to Vermont artist Anne Stokes. It is rumored that Anne, knowing how attached Madame Sherri was to her castle, goes to the nursing home and reassures Madame Sherri that she will forever take care of Madame Sherri's castle and the land. It is said that one day after the sale is finalized, Madame Sherri passes away. Ladies and gentlemen, beautiful creatures of the world, this is a heartbreaking story of a woman who was so attached to her land, the land that gave her such solace throughout the years she remained on this earth without her husband, Andre, that one day after the property did no longer exist in Madame Sherri's life, she felt that her existence in this world was no longer necessary. Ladies and gentlemen, beautiful creatures of the world, carpe diem, because no one promised you a tomorrow.